Go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to present some of the counterpoints there are for the Alianza del Pacífico. The Alianza del Pacífico, as we know, is an alliance made by 4 countries, which are Mexico, Peru, Chile, and Colombia. Well, one of our main points we want to talk about is how arbitrary the choice of these countries was made. Because first of all, how would you not include a country like Ecuador, which is also in that same chain of countries, if it is called Alliance of the Pacific? Second of all, we don't think this is an agreement that is made towards a positive change for free trade, because, for example, this is like a block, and for example, Paraguay wanted to enter the Alliance of the Pacific, and these countries didn't allow Paraguay to join them because it was already in the Mercosur Alliance. And well, this tells us that this bloc is more against the Mercosur, like a counterpart for Mercosur, than really an agreement to make better free trade in the world.
Okay, so when we were talking about the trade creation versus the trade diversion, we can see this. This was from our lecturer, Krugman, and he explains that when countries start grouping together, the blocks go down until there are only 2 big, well, I think it says 3 big blocks, and that is the worst situation of all. You either are alone or you're 1 big block. So with this happening, as we can see here, is 3 is the worst point. So if we continue to do this, this is an arbitrary, as Mariana said. Why didn't they accept it Paraguay? If you're really looking for trade, then this is more of a political thing to say, oh, because we have agreements with the United States and because we think Ecuador is more of a left wing, then you know what, we don't want to do business with you. But as we've been seeing in class, if you want to really do trade, then you should include everybody. It doesn't matter the politics. For you, it's good, even though they're a closed economy. Well, also...
Can you go back one before? The one thing that Diane has to explain to you is that what you have there in the axis, you have welfare. Okay? And welfare implies how we're going to be feeling, what is going to be the benefit for all of us. And what she has said right now is, in a world where you end up with a block of countries that integrate themselves, there is going to be such a diversion of trade between countries, and only will be in those countries which are part of the bloc, that what you're going to be losing is a lot of welfare in the world, okay? So that's a terrible situation, from 100% welfare where everybody gains, to a situation where only a few gain and therefore you are losing tremendously. And as you see, it depends on the elasticity of trade, what will be the final impact. And the worst situation possible, as Krugman presented in this paper in 1991, will be if you had a tremendous inelasticity, and therefore you will be losing a lot of trade. So at that point, you're in the worst situation. So depending on what will be also the elasticity, okay? How much of the trade that you do can or cannot be substituted, then you will see what happens. If it is easily substituted, yes, you have a loss of welfare, but it's not the same as if you are talking about goods which cannot be easily satisfied, in the sense that I need to put resources which I was not using before for that purpose, okay? So it is important that you see the 2 things. One thing is, yes, as you put blocks, those blocks will do what is called trade diversion. And that means you're going to be worse off than you were before. How badly this is going to be depends on the elasticity of the products that you are trading. Okay? If you can change them very quickly, then you lose, but not that much. But if you cannot really do that because you were really specialized, then you lose tremendous amounts of welfare in the whole world. Okay?
And as we can see in this example, the 4 countries that are gathering together, they are developing countries, we could say. So they don't have the high tech that the US has. So the elasticity would be very high because they can't really substitute, for example, technology.
Actually, it would be very low on that side.
Okay.
Because high is over there, this is low, okay? But did everybody understand why? No? Not very much? Do you want to explain, Diana, or should I explain?
Yes. Okay, so if we were 10 people and then we started making teams, so I'm very good with my team, but I say, no, I'm not going to be good with you. And then we make a bigger team, so we're stronger and we have more power over the others that don't have a team. So we're like, you have to do this, and I can, in this case, what I do is I put tariffs. And I say, okay, with you, my neighbor, my country, my friend, I'm not going to charge you anything. But for others, because I don't want others to have the same benefits as I do as a block, then I'm going to say, okay, have a barrier. So the others can do whatever they want, and here is really good. And for instance, if somebody makes cheese and the other makes tortillas and we make sauce, we don't have a problem. But if the three of us make tortillas, and that's a problem. That's the two here that I can't substitute because I only have tortillas, right? So it's really hard for me to get cheese when I have cows. But if you have a substitution in your block, then it's easy. So what happens is that, okay, I make my block, and then the other one makes a block. So we're fighting. And because we have a lot of power, we put the tariffs really high. So what he says here is that 3 is like 3 blocks. So we're fighting against each other. Even though between our blocks, we don't have tariffs and we're really good to each other, with the other blocks, we're going to put tariffs. So the welfare, instead of all, just trading and getting the benefits of the others, goods and services, no, we put tariffs and then welfare goes down. Instead of me buying something for $1, I have to buy it for $2 because I have a tariff. So what would be the best is just one block where there are no tariffs and we're like all friends and we don't charge tariffs.
But the whole point is, if I do what she's saying, and I start with a situation where I am buying a car, okay? And I'm buying this car from the United States. They are very good at making cars. And so they will sell the car, the price is going to be, let's say, $1,000. And then I say, I don't want to do business with the United States. It's just going to be Peru, Mexico, and Argentina, okay? So I am creating a block. That block now has these 3 countries. Once I do that, I'm going to say, because we want to be friends, only cars produced in either of these 3 countries can be sold in either of these 3 countries. So in automatic, what you are saying is, this car, okay, who's coming from the United States, cannot enter in my zone. That's what's called trade diversion. Okay, that's what Diana was telling you is, because you do that, all these products cannot get into my zone. So, but I need a car. Okay, I am Mexico, I'm going to build a car for you. But because I am not as good as the United States and I don't have the resources that they have, I'm going to be selling the car in $3,000. Now this is trade creation inside the region, okay? Because before we didn't have the production of cars, we brought them from the United States. Right now, I'm producing the car in Mexico, so that's creation of trade inside the block. Because now what's going to happen is, whereas before we didn't have cars coming from these countries, now cars will have to come from these countries. But they come at a very high price compared to that price. This is the loss of welfare, okay? The loss of welfare for whom? For these people. So what she's saying is, if I really have a tremendous inelasticity, because this implies I didn't produce it before, so I'm going to be at the top of the inelasticity. the lowest elasticity possible. I'm going to be losing a lot of welfare. And of course, they are going to lose also, because what's going to happen is they won't be able to sell that car anymore. And so people who were working on producing cars in the United States are also losing welfare. So the combination makes us go into this point. We are worse off. Who is worse off? Everybody. That's what she's saying, okay? How bad is going to be that depends on the elasticity of what you are going to be trading. Okay? This is the problem. I'm losing because now I pay more. But because I pay more, it implies that the resources I'm using to produce this car could have been used much better in other things. So everybody is going to be worse off. Okay? Yeah? Okay. I don't remember anymore. You were against or for?
Against.
Against. So that's why she's against part of it. Keep going.
Yeah, but I'm against Alianza del Pacífico, not trade.
I know.
Okay, so one thing we want to talk about is the disparity between the countries that were chosen for this alliance. The one country that we believe shouldn't be here is Peru, and I'm going to explain why later on. But here we can see the foreign direct investment. This is Mexico, which is the best one, then Chile, then Colombia, and Peru that has gone down. This is the unemployment. This is very important because part of this is not only tariffs, but they want to make free transit of people between the countries. So that has potential real problems. Why? Because we're Mexico, we're the US neighbor. So we're a trampoline for all the people that are looking for the American dream and who want to come to Mexico and then go to the United States. And that would be fine if we had the frame institution, legal institutions that would control that, but we don't. So with that, then we're not really mature to have that kind of alliances that we can't control, and then all the problems are going to come to Mexico. Okay, this is a Gini index. This explains the income dispersion in a country. This is Colombia. This is Peru. I think this is Chile and Mexico. So the important part here is that these people, okay, their macroeconomic measures are fine, but that doesn't mean that all the people have money or all the people won't take advantage of what I just said, following the American dream and coming to Mexico. And well, also talking about Peru, I was reading this article and it said that the economics minister of Peru is very concerned because the exchange rate, well, the solar has appreciated and it hasn't stopped. We can see this is their currency, and what happens when it goes up? Well, the central bank has to buy money so that the economy doesn't heat and then goes down, because that would make a bubble. But the central bank has bought a lot of money recently, so that means that what could happen is that their currency could appreciate so much that it wouldn't be good for the other countries to buy goods from them because it would be more expensive. So we as Mexicans, well, as customers, we wouldn't gain anything from this. Well, also another problem that the Alliance of the Pacific is having is that there are problems between the countries that are integrated in this agreement, because, for example, Peru and Chile have some troubles defining the lines of the maritime territory. And also there is the perception of the Peruvians that the government from Chile is only trying to milk their situation and their territory, because the own Peruvian government doesn't know what to do with their territory, with their positioning and what they have in their territory. Okay, and that's what we think we are against the alliance that doesn't have.
Questions from the class? Okay, now you can applaud. Okay, now come the opposition. What is the opposition? Who's going to be you? Okay, great. You have a presentation like that or not?
No.
No, okay, so go ahead.
Okay, good morning. We're going to talk about the Alianza del Pacífico, and we are defending it. So we will start talking about the benefits that this alliance can have in the countries, and how is it good for Mexico? And well, very much.
Well, first of all, the immediate effects of this alliance would be that the commerce between Mexico and the rest of the three countries, our exports would grow on 30% on a medium period of time, which can go from 6 to 1 year, and that's a very good data. Also, this alliance seems pretty good to us, since those countries involved in it, well, there are going to be observers, and a very strong and I think good observer which is going to take place in this alliance is Japan. So therefore, we think that strong regulations will be respected. So that's very needed for a big alliance like this to work, and that's what Japan is going to provide. Also, since we are Latin Americans, we believe that this alliance is going to take place very smoothly, since there are a lot of similarities in our culture and in language. Therefore, that provides easiness for this to go on. Also, what this alliance means, it's going to be like free trade, and free trade, as we have seen in the last couple of classes, provides countries the capacity of specializing on what they are good at, because since any company involved in this in any of these countries will have to have a international standards in order to be able to remain in the market. Therefore, final clients are going to win, because this provides lower prices and better quality. With foreign direct investment, will also bring a lot of technology improvements. This is why I mean this foreign direct investment is going to provide competition, and competition will demand for companies to improve their technology, their skills, and their jobs. According to the OECD, the foreign direct investment, one of the best and biggest improvements that foreign direct investment brings to a country is that the quality of life improves. Why? Because foreign direct investment generally brings higher salaries to the people overseas. Foreign direct investment will also bring technology, and technology improvement will bring a wider production possibility frontier. Therefore, a country will be more productive and will be able to produce more than they were before.
And also some specialized have a better opinion of the alliance, the Alianza del Pacífico, than the Mercosur, because these countries are closer to the United States and to China, and some people were saying that that Mexico should focus on their trades with the U.S. because it's better. But I think that now that we have this bloc, these countries are less protected than the other countries that are in the Mercosur. So with this alliance, they can better export to the U.S. And also we have an advantage. We have superávit, and we can go in the countries that have a deficit, and it's better because we can sell more in there.
Mariana, is surplus. Superávit is in Spanish.
Surplus.
Okay.
Also, according to the OECD, taking part of international agreements on a medium from 6 to 1 year, the country will reflect a growth in GDP. So that's why those are some of the main reasons we believe that these are good news for Latin America, for people living on these countries, and for the world.
Questions? No? Gee, you're too tame. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to go back to the course, and then we're going to bring back the discussion at the end of the class. Okay? Good for this. You're doing okay. We talked about several things. We were talking about subsidies and protection. This is exactly what was being discussed right now. What is the best policy if you really want to make your companies that will make sense in terms to competition? Subsidize them? Are we going to help them that way? We come and we make these agreements. We go with the United States. We make a NAFTA agreement. After we make the NAFTA agreement, what happens? Our companies come to us and say, if you do that, what's going to happen to me is I'm going to be closing. As I close, I'm going to lose jobs. The economy is going to lose jobs. And therefore, I am not able to compete as I am right now. What I need from you is, give me subsidies. Isn't that what we all ask every time that we're going to these negotiations?
Maybe not ask for subsidized, but ask for credit with a
subsidized.
But with a reasonable interest rate.
What is a reasonable interest rate? What do you like? 10%? 5%? 2%? 0%? What? What's a reasonable interest rate?
Or maybe above the interest rate.
Okay, there is no such thing as a reasonable interest rate, okay? There is only a market rate. What we should be looking at, and you have to be very careful when you go there. I mean, of course, as a business company, you want to ask for, okay? But what you should be is able to compete against anyone in equal terms. So what you're saying is, look, I mean, the interest rates in Mexico are too high compared to the United States. So when I go and ask for a credit, I'm going to have to pay 10% interest rate, 7%, whatever. But the United States, a company that goes there gets credit for only 2%. That company is going to be able to have financial cost of 2%, I have 10%, and therefore it's very complicated. I cannot compete. Give me a subsidy, interest rate subsidy, because that's reasonable. They pay 2%, and we pay 10%. Give me 8 points of subsidy so I can compete. Was that what you had in mind?
Well, not like making like the banks to compete also with the banks in the United States.
So how do you do that? You go and you tell the banks, give them the credit at 2%.
No, making more competition in banks here also.
Okay. So the point that you're making is, as long as I have a situation where in my internal market I have no competition or no real competition between banks, I'm going to be in a worse off situation than the United States, where you have more competition. Please give me that, but don't give me a subsidy. Yeah? Give me competition. Okay, so I don't give you competition. What happens? What do you do? Do you do business or not?
You can make it, yes.
So what you're going to be doing is, because the exchange rate is important, because the interest rate is important, the combination of that will give me what will be my costs, okay? I look at those costs, and what's going to happen in Mexico is the distortion in the market in terms of interest rates is going to create a situation where I'm going to be investing in those businesses where I can be profitable in the end in my relationship with the United States and Canada. Yeah? That implies that a lot of things that may have been done in Mexico won't because of this distortion. And that's a problem not of the NAFTA treaty itself, but of the distortion that exists in my market in something which is essential, credit. Yeah?
But what happens if you subsidize like the same with grace? What's happened like the European subsidize grace and grace doesn't go up, you know, like grace is in there. What happened if you subsidize?
Are we subsidizing in Europe the Greeks? Are we doing that? I'm asking the question. I'm going to answer your concern, but I'm asking the question. Are we subsidizing the Greeks? By we, I mean we, the European Union. Are we subsidizing the Greeks?
They already do subsidize Greece.
When?
Well, only money.
Okay, so I lend you money. Do I charge you interest rates, market interest rates, or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that market interest rate the one that you should pay or the one that I should pay? I am Germany and you're Greece.
I don't know.
Ah, well, you have to find out, okay? And then you can come back with the question. The point is, if I am making a loan to you and I'm giving you the loan at 8 points, interest rate 8, and I can get that money by 1.9, then I may not be subsidizing you, okay? Because I'm charging you interest rates, which are the market interest rate that you should pay. What I'm doing is I'm opening the door so that you can have credit, because you don't have access to credit. But what I'm doing is I'm giving you credit at interest rates which are very expensive compared to mine. But the point is, you are the one who is in trouble. And therefore, you have to pay more. Now, this has been the discussion in the European Union, okay? Because the discussion is, come on, you, Germany, can take the money at 2% interest rate. So you go to the market, get 2% interest rate, and then you give me the money at 2% interest rate. Because I don't need to suffer if you can give me that money at that interest rate. And then I come back to you and say, no way, Jose, you are going to be paying 8%. And you say, but this is making my people suffer. And I'm saying, tough luck. So what I'm saying to you is, I am not subsidizing you. I'm helping you solve a liquidity problem and a financial problem. And this is the discussion right now in the European Union. Because the discussion is, how do we share the cost of all this process of rebuilding the region? You really want to keep the European Union? You have to pay for that. Otherwise, I'm going to walk out. I am Greece, and what I'm going to say is, I walk out because I cannot take that. The problem for Greece is, if it does that, it will be worse off than before. And the reason why it's going to be worse off than before is because they have nothing really that will allow them to be more competitive. So the biggest problem they are facing right now is, if I walk out of the union, what is it that I sell to the union? Let's just simplify and say tourism. Okay, so what's going to happen is, I walk out, I establish the drachma, and the drachma then goes into a huge devaluation vis-a-vis the euro. At that point, because I made this huge devaluation, I'm going to be selling my services very cheap. Because I'm going to be selling them in drachmas at an exchange rate that will tell me that the Germans won't have to pay €1, but only 20 cents of euro to come to visit Greece. Greece is going to be worse off anyway. Okay? They will have to take the hit, but they will take it in a different way. It's not going to be through the financial system, it's going to be through their tourism system. Fine, there's going to be a lot of people working in Greece because now there's going to be a flood of people coming to Greece. Because if I had to pay €1 and I had to pay 25 cents, I can come 4 times. I'll do that. And then you're going to be happy because you have a lot of people working in your country. Yeah, but they are going to be paid how much? Very little in euros. All of this is the question that you have to keep in mind. Yes?
You said that you have only one currency. But so in Latin America we have only one currency. That's the problem in Latin America. We don't have one currency, and we have a lot of problems there.
And therefore, the exchange rate problem is one that you have to take into account and consideration when you're making your plans. And one of the things that you have to think about is what was presented before, okay? If my exchange rates are artificially becoming very high, if they are appreciating, then I'm losing competitiveness, not because of what I'm doing, but because of the external factors that are bringing my currency high. Which is the reason why the European Union decided to go into one single money, okay? Because that will stop this concept that you are going to be losing competitiveness or you are going to be gaining competitiveness because of the exchange rate. And we decided to go into the euro. Now we're finding out that the euro, without a public sector definition of what will be the deficit in each and every country, doesn't work either. So the biggest problem that we're facing right now in the European Union is because I have a single currency, I cannot take independent decisions like the Greeks. But that's exactly the opposite of what's happening in Latin America. Well, yeah, this is part of the fun of exchange rate policy, okay? And you have to look at all these things, otherwise it doesn't work. I mean, unfortunately, the course is about treaties, okay? Not about finances. But looking at the things that we're talking, what we are answering very quickly is, no, you shouldn't do those things. It's not going to help. In the long run, if you start subsidizing, if you start giving financial credit at lower interest rates than what they should be recognizing them, if you keep doing these things, then what's going to happen is you're going to have inefficient companies working in your country. And when you are not able to subsidize anymore, those companies will fail unless you give them protection. And that means I'm going against free trade. And so you have to be very careful about these things because in the end, you have companies that will be inefficient given problems that you have in your own economy. So what you're saying is exactly the correct thing. Go and change the structure of the banking system in Mexico because I need that to be competitive. But don't give me subsidy. Just do things right. Okay? This is exactly the point. The best policy, therefore, is what are the internal constraints that are making my companies inefficient? And how can I make them efficient is important. You know, before I came here, I was in a press conference, and we were talking about Pemex. And we just saw Pemex last class. And we saw how much money we take away from Pemex as government. All the money that I'm taking away from Pemex, I'm using to finance my deficit. Who am I? The government. But as I do that, Pemex cannot operate as a normal company. Because the problem for Pemex is, every time they want to make the right investment, the right thing, the government comes and says, sorry, the money is mine. Give me the money first, and then you go to the market and get a loan. If you keep doing that to Pemex, the problem for Pemex is they have a tremendous debt, and that has financial costs, that makes it inefficient, and so on and so on. But the discussion in Mexico is not an economics discussion. It's a political discussion. Am I going to be giving Pemex to the private sector, to foreigners, to whatever? That's, in a sense, is irrelevant. The key question is, could you please let Pemex be a private, not that it is private because it belongs to the government, but can you let it behave as any private enterprise so that Pemex can compete on equal ground with Shell, this, that. Back to your thing is, am I a private company? Let me act as a private company, but in addition, give me the conditions that will provide me the right credit. Okay. One of the reasons why Cemex had a tremendous advantage at the beginning of their expansion was because they had an idea which was really good. When they internationalized themselves as a company, Cemex, okay, they decided to set shop in Spain. So they bought a cement company in Spain. In buying the cement company in Spain, they were able to tap into the financial markets of Europe. As they were able to tap into the financial markets of Europe, they were able to get credit at 2-3%. Whereas in Mexico, you had to pay 7, 8, or 10%. Just because of that, that company, becoming an international company, was able to tap a financial market, get money at a very cheap interest rate, and make the investment in places where that advantage make it very profitable until things turn around. They thought that this was forever. It doesn't work that way forever. So you're going to be working in international company. These are the things that you can do. But you also have to be on the lookout all the time. Because what's going to happen is, if I don't realize that I am compromising too much of my company in one single market, and that simple market is the United States, and the United States turns over, then I'm in trouble. Which is exactly what happened to Cemex. Sorry. Because what Cemex did is they bought a company in Australia, and they didn't realize that even though the company was in Australia, the market for that company was in the United States. And so in fact, as a strategy of the company, they made a big mistake. And the mistake was, by diversifying my source of production, I'm reducing costs, but I'm also creating a singularity of my dependency on the United States market. When the housing market in the United States went over, the whole thing for Cemex went down. They made other mistakes, okay? This in particular. Yes, Leigh.
Talking about subsidizing and the government intervention, what do you think about programs like the CONACYT, that they give you money if you invest also?
It is, CONACYT is making those in terms of what is called promotion of innovation, okay? Innova, that's the name of the program. Yeah? It's even with double M, I don't know why. But. So what Innova does is, it's going to try to stimulate investment in research and development. Okay? And that's key, because in my country I don't have the resources to really go into that. So what I do is, yes, I'm going to do this on one condition. Since this is money from CONACYT, and since CONACYT was set up a long time ago with the idea of developing really internal capacity to do research and development at the university level, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the money as long as there is a university and a company working together in the development of something that is new. Okay? Now, last year, to give an example, our university went with two companies here in Puebla, and we joined forces, and we got about, that must have been about 18 million pesos. Okay? And the whole idea was we're going to be developing two new things. One is knees, artificial knees, okay, with a company which is dedicated to that here in Puebla. And our professors were working with them in developing the whole techniques and processes. And this is new, so I'm creating innovation. I'm creating the capacity in the university to keep doing that. And we went into simulation of, what's this? This was, you know, when you go to a city and you want to know what is going to be the best route to go. This is one of these little things, I don't remember. It's an app, okay? And so we develop an app for that purpose. This is the whole purpose. The whole process that you will have then a university like ours with professors who have been working on this, and they are becoming more and more into that process. And at the same time, a company that's able then to develop new technology and therefore be better off. So that makes sense as long as you don't keep giving me money just for that purpose. You finish that project, the commercialization, everything else is your business. And this is what we're doing right now. In fact, one of the things that we're doing in the next year is defining as part of that what will be the research area for the university. And that has to be linked, in our case, to PhD programs. Okay? Because what we're going to do as a university is moving in this direction. Then we're going to set up what will be our fields of expertise in the long run in research and PhDs. If you do that, makes sense. If what you do is you keep depending on that money to be competitive, it doesn't work. Okay? So it's a one shot, let you run, that's fine. You are giving me an initial point of development. All of these things can be done that way too. The problem is if I start giving you subsidies and credit, I have to put a limit to that and say, after 2 years, that's it. Okay, the problem is, after 2 years, you have a company who has 2,000 people working because you received the subsidy, and then the government says, No more. Okay, I'm going to throw to the street 2,000 people. What I will do is I will send them to the booths of collecting money in the road between Mexico and Puebla. So they will stop the traffic and they will demand that you keep the subsidy going. You create interest groups, power groups, which then will influence politics, not economics. That's exactly what the SME is doing. You know, Sindicato Mexicano de Electricistas keeps going without. Give me a break. You're gone. You were inefficient. So, what are the trade fallacies that we have? The first one is people coming to you and saying, okay, exports are good, imports are bad. We just had an example a little while ago. Yeah? They were making a presentation that exports are good, imports are bad. Depends. A long time ago, in the 18th century, it was called mercantilism. Okay? And what it implied was you have to be a country that has a surplus with each and every country. Otherwise, it's bad policy. Exactly the whole point of free trade is, no, imports are as important as exports, and both bring welfare to the economy. As they both bring welfare to the economy, you should let imports and exports happen. So your policy has not something that is defined, as we saw in the last class when I said to you, China and South Korea define the policy of what is called foreign trade directive. Okay? That's not what makes sense. Second fallacy, free trade isn't fair trade. Okay? Cheap imports can hurt higher cost domestic suppliers, but consumers certainly will gain. Why penalize this tit-for-tat retaliation that only raises prices in the national economy? Other countries' trade transgressions don't warrant missteps of our own. That is, let them do whatever they want. If they want to subsidize our consumption, why we should say no? So, free trade and fair trade is a very interesting discussion. The third fallacy is trade makes us dependent on foreign suppliers, and we want to have sovereign nations. Food is very important. We have to produce all our food. Otherwise, we're going to be in the hands of foreigners. Okay, how many of you produce your own food? Okay, you're in the hands of foreigners, okay? Foreigners to your house. Because if I decide not to sell food to you, you will starve. It's a fallacy, okay? It's really dumb when you talk about these things. It's, wait a minute, you mean I have to produce all my food? If I take that to the extreme is what I just said right now. Why don't you go to your garden and you produce all the food that you will require? So I want to go to your house and see you with your chickens, your cows, your things, because that's the way it should be. That will make you free. You don't depend on anyone. Yeah, but you're going to be in the poorest condition that I see. So I can take you to places where that happens. Now, this discussion is very important in Mexico, because we have also another thing in Mexico which is called the culture. And so people are going to come to you and say, if you do that, you're going to destroy the cultural roots of these communities. Let the Mixtecos be Mixtecos. Please don't contaminate them. Let them eat as their ancestors did. Please don't let them grow and become modern. And then you have to ask these people, okay, give me the example. Go and live in their communities and live as they do. Well, we are different. I was born in a city, so I am different. I don't want to be taken to that position. So the key question that you have to ask yourself is, yes, we have to create an environment where people can decide, Salud, what they want to be and what they want to do. But you should not create an environment where you don't allow them to be different if they so wish. But we do the contrary. We come and say, well, take care of them. So if you go and you take anthropology classes in this university, you will learn all this stuff, because what they will be telling you exactly that. I mean, our anthropology department is very concerned about what we are doing in terms of destroying cultures. And it makes sense. You have to preserve your culture, but you have to be careful. And so what we're talking about is trade protection is really what is bad, because what it will create, you saw it right here. Trade protection is going to create trade diversion. As it does that, the goods that are being produced and are being consumed in your society are going to be more expensive and will give you less welfare than if you allow free trade. Okay, this comes from the booklet I asked you to read. So, what we can conclude is that the famous isms, okay, are wrong. Because in fact, all countries, including the poorest, have assets, human, industrial, natural, financial, they can employ to produce goods. Maybe I'm not as good as it was if you had given me the credit. Yeah, but given the resource allocation that you have, you can be better off with trade than without trade. Okay? Oh yeah, if I got the credit at 2%, I will be even better. Yeah, that's true. But even if your interest rate is 10%, with free trade, you're going to be better off. And because you don't have 2%, you have to find a way that the interest rate goes down to 2% so that you will be even better off. But that's an internal policy. That's not an external policy. Okay? That's very important. These are our own policies. As a company, this is my own policy. I'm working for an international business. Well, if I'm international, I have to take advantage of the concept of international. Can I go and borrow in the United States and invest in Mexico? If I can do that, I'm in the best of the two worlds. Because what I'm doing is I'm getting cheap credit and high return. Well, isn't that what you should be thinking about as a strategy? You have to think that way, okay? You're going to think the local way. It doesn't make sense. In particular, you, because you are in that degree, okay? You have to be looking at what happens all over the world. How can I improve my company? So the question your company is going to say, but I am too small. I really can't go to the international market. Oh, okay, well, that's a limit I have to live with, okay? But let me see what else can I do. And the concept is the concept of comparative advantage, okay? Yes, you may not be as good as everybody else in doing this, but there may be an advantage for everybody that you produce that rather than the other one. Because the cost in general is going to be less. Because if the other guy were to make that investment in what you can produce better, he or she will be spending more money than otherwise. Everybody wins. And that's the theory of comparative advantage. A mercantilist wants absolute advantage. And one of the problems of the theory of Adam Smith is that the theory of Adam Smith was a theory based on absolute advantage. You have to be good and better than the other one to exchange goods. So you will exchange those goods in which you were better and the other one better, and then you exchange. What the theory of comparative advantage tells you is you don't need to be better. Only relatively better if you can do it that way. We're going to see this in more detail later on, okay? But the whole point is comparative advantage tells you that even if a country is dominant in everything, it will be better off if it trades with other countries in those things where its advantage is less and keeps producing those things in which its advantage is more. Think of it this way. iPads, iPhones. Okay? If I develop iPads and iPhones, then I'm the one owner of the technology. And I can bring food from the other side. Yeah, but you know, given the size and the territory of the United States, if they were to produce food also, they will do it at a cheaper price than the production that can take place in China. Yeah, but using resources in that, when they can make a lot of money in this, is dumb. Because they will have a higher return on their investment doing it on this than on the other thing. And so what they will do is say, look, rather than using my resources to that, let them use the resources for that. I'll buy them, I'll sell them this, and I'm going to be better off because the amount I'm going to get from this sale is much higher than the price I have to pay for this other. This is comparative advantage, okay? That's what David Ricardo brought into the fold. But he said, look, I mean, it's not a question of absolute advantage. That's called mercantilism. Let's go for free trade. So The other problem is, yeah, but you know, technology changes. And so you may be very good today, but what about tomorrow? So the question that you have to keep looking on this thing is, comparative advantage is important, and then I have a problem in the modern world. As technology changes, my comparative advantage must be changing. And so if I remain static and think that because I did this year, I'm going to be forever good, who knows? Someone else can beat us as technology advances. So I want to be important, what do I do? I limit the capacity of other countries to have my technology. And these are the new barriers to trade in the current world. If I developed iPad, I don't want you to know how I did it, because that's what gives me the advantage. So I'm going to create obstructions to the transfer of technology. Okay, so the conclusion is, if there is a secret to wealth, it lies in the alchemy of specialization and trade. Buyers and sellers consume more without added effort. It sounds too good to be true. Yet, unlike the alchemist's false promise of turning lead into gold, the gains from specialization and trade occur whenever markets are allowed to function. Whenever markets are allowed to function. If I have a market inside my country where I have dominance from 3 banks, it's not going to work as well as if I have competition. So allow that market to work, and I will be better off. Okay? So these are the questions that we have been talking about. And then the question is really that simple, okay? So you start listening to these things. If you compare growth in the United States between 50 and 80 and 2007, which the author of this paper, okay? This is a lady which is she's an African lady. She's very good and she's very concerned about social issues. Okay? And she was part of the banking community. She was the general manager for, actually she was the one who managed the whole bank, JP Morgan in Africa. So Dambisa Moyo all of a sudden had an epiphany. Okay? You know what an epiphany is? You remember what happened to St. Paul? Anyone knows what happened to St. Paul? You know he was not in favor of the Catholics, yeah, at the beginning of the times. He was persecuting Christians. You don't know the story about St. Paul? St. Peter and St. Paul? Yeah? You know who this guy is? St. Paul? Okay. All of a sudden, this guy is anti-Christians. And so he's killing Christians, going after them. And all of a sudden, the sky opens, and a thunder strikes him, falls from his horse, and God tells him, Paul, well, that was not really his name, Paul, why are you persecuting me? And at that point, he had an epiphany, which is this revelation, okay? And by having that revelation, all of a sudden, he said, oh, I'm on the wrong side. And so he turned Christian. And he has become one of the biggest saints in the church, okay? But you need to have these revelations, these epiphanies that come and hit you. Now, Dambisa had that revelation, okay? And all of a sudden she said, what am I doing making money? I should be with the poor. So she switched sides. And she wrote this book, How the West Was Lost. It's interesting in the sense that she sends the message of why our consumer attitude is destroying many of the values of our society, okay? And she has become now a speaker for all these issues of social justice and all that, which is nice. In this speech that she made at Chatham House in January 18, 2011, she presented this from a study made by the University of Chicago, where they demonstrated that a period that you can consider closed trade in the United States, 1950 to 1980, and open trade, 1980 to 2007, the results in terms of growth were the same. And so the issue of whether open and free trade is better than closed and protected trade remains an issue, because what they discovered was what you have is 2% growth in the 2 periods. So growth is not the issue. But then these people from the University of Chicago made an analysis of income distribution. And what they found is that income inequality widened with open trade. Conclusion: if this is true, then trade is not good. Okay? So if you look at people's per capita income, as I mentioned earlier, that's what she says, you've seen that real wages have been flat, and part of the way in which people have actually gained from globalization in the US and Europe has been by having greater access to debt. This was told in 2011, and we were facing, obviously, all the crises of the 2008-2009 situation. So what she's making there is a point that later on has been taken. In fact, it was taken from before by Stiglitz and Krugman. Mariana and Diana just showed us one of the papers of Krugman. Krugman is one of the biggest transformers of trade theory in the past 40 years, okay? These two guys have gone from supporters of free trade to presenting all the dangers of free trade. No one can say about Krugman or Stiglitz that they don't know their economics. They both are Nobel Prizes. They both teach in what you may call conservative schools, if you want to call it that way. Both talk as well as Dambisa Moyo about inequality from trade. So the biggest problem, and I have some problem here because I don't know what happened to my... This disappeared, so I'm not going to be able to see. So, the question is, oh, okay, so as long as there are trade, there are poor people. And so, I ask you to read the Saramango article. What is it that Saramango says in his article?
That justice is lost.
Okay, so express, what is the expression of, you have to understand Saramango, okay? I don't know if you read Saramango. It's really worth your while to read him, okay? I may not be in agreement with him, but doesn't mean that we should not read him. So justice and injustice is a question that is very difficult to quantify, okay? So what does he say in his article?
That the income for the middle class is reducing in the last years, comparing with in other years, and the poverty is increasing.
So the point made by Saramango in his paper, which is, by the way, this was the last article he wrote, okay? After that he died. I'm not kidding you. He died after he published that thing. But what Saramango is saying in that article is something that's very important to us. As long as people have a perception of inequality, as long as people have a perception of injustice, as long as those things are happening, I'm going to be against the system that I believe is creating that situation. So look at what I said before. This is a study by the University of Chicago, okay? I mean, if you think about it, any place more conservative, right-wing than the University of Chicago, please tell me which one, okay? I can tell you a couple, but I mean, this is probably the best university of right-wingers in the world, okay? Friedman, etc. These guys are good. And yet they made the study and they showed to all of us that open trade, closed trade, about the same in terms of growth, but inequality increased with open trade. So Saramango is exactly saying that, and the article is important because what it tells you is the feeling of people who see injustice in the world and feels terrible about it. And you have to feel for that. You cannot just drive through the streets of Puebla or Cholula and not see poverty around you and feel, well, tough luck for those guys. I am the lucky one. How do we help? Okay. Because if you look at this situation and you keep sending message after message after message is, gee, I don't know. We just made all these changes. We have gone for these reforms. We're doing all these things. But look at this place. Percentage of the population living on less than $1.25 a day. 12.8, okay? Total in the world. But in sub-Saharan area, 32.8. Gee, a few who are becoming rich and lots who are becoming poor. Number of people living on less than 125 a day, 918 million people. Think about that. I don't know how much money you spend, okay? Don't tell me. But let me tell you the exercise I used to do with business people in Mexico when I was in the Ministry of Economy. I would sit with them and say, look, think about this. There are 20 of us here, okay? So 125 a day per person. I'll tell you what we'll do. There are 20 of us here. I'm assuming that we are used to a little bit higher standard than that, but I'm going to make a challenge to you. You have a family. How many you have in your family? So people will say to you 3, 4. So let's go for the average. We have average families of 5 people. So that means that normally you will have $6.25 per day. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 times that. How about that? Isn't that nice? I am generous. So rather than living with $6.25, I'm going to give you so you can live with $20, $21 per day. And let's make the challenge. For the next 3 years, you only live on $21 per day, which multiply at the exchange rate we have right now is about 250 pesos a day. 250 pesos a day is about 7,500 pesos a month. Okay? That's not bad. How many of our families can live? I'm talking family of 5, okay? With 7,500 pesos a day. Okay, so you go to an antro. How much you spend in one night? All I want you is to think about this. It's important that we think about these things, okay? I don't want you to be poor. I want you to understand what being poor means. Because what's important to all of us is we have to make things to make people better off, not worse off. And if I have problems with this, it's because all the numbers that I see give the appearance that if I go for the right policies, I get the wrong results. So I have to understand exactly what we just said a little while ago. It is not free trade. It is the way that we do our own domestic trade. That's important. Meaning by that, the internal policies of a country are very important if I'm going to go into this kind of policies. And I cannot just say, tough luck for those who were born poor. It's not my problem. It is our problem. If we don't do that, we won't be able to help. And we won't be able to really bring the right policies to the fore. Because people then will be continuously saying, look at the results. Okay? We have to be conscious of that. When you do business, when you work with whatever, you don't want to be poor, you don't want to have business that lose money. But you want to make sure that things happen that will help. Okay? How do we do that in the university? This university is not a university that should be losing money, because then we won't be able to do anything. But as we are financially stable, we should be able to do 2 things. One of them is raise tuition as little as possible every single year, which is what we do, just once a year, no more. And the second thing is provide scholarships to people. Okay? 48% of the students in the university have some kind of scholarship. This is the point. It's not to lose money, okay? It's not to have rooms that make no sense, that don't have the facilities. No, no, no. It's be aware and help. Remember that $125 a day, and think what you can do with $125 a day. You, not your family, okay? So you're going to get married, and as you get married, you and your husband or your wife will live with $250 a day. How much is that in pesos? So be happy. Love each other. But it's important. You're going to be living, if this were the equivalent, okay, you will be asked to live with 30 pesos a day. It's it's not going to help your marriage a lot, okay? So you have to be careful on that. So the question is, can we do fair and free trade or not? So let me show you this, which I think is interesting in terms of what it implies.
Fair trade, in essence, is all about helping small family farmers in developing countries get organized and develop their business skills in order to tap into the world market directly. When they sell direct, they can make 2, 3, even 4 times more. And of course, with more revenues, they're able to develop their communities, keep their kids in school, create scholarship programs, bring electric lighting to their villages for the first time.
Fair trade isn't a product. Fair trade isn't a brand. Fair trade's a story.
Clearly, farmers are the big winners in the fair trade model. They're making more money. They're doing it in a way that really requires them to develop business skills, so they're becoming much more sustainable and independent. They're taking care of their land and their ecosystems much better, so they're leaving something behind for future generations.
El cambio que por lo menos nosotros notamos de antes del comercio justo a ahora con el comercio justo es que cuanto mejor calidad de café producimos, recibimos un mejor precio. Se hace recogiendo los rojos y cuanto más rojos estén, mejor calidad es el café.
Our model is based on empowerment of communities to take care of themselves, to take care of their ecosystems. It's a market linkage model, essentially recreating what you might think of as a farmer's market gone global. So we're not trying to turn back the clock on globalization, and we're not closing our eyes to the reality of the global economy. Rather, we're trying to find ways to harness the power.
¿Por qué? Porque los precios serían mejores para nosotros. ¿Por qué? Porque nuestros hijos podrían recibir más dinero por becas para estudiar.
We've heard globalization, this era that we live in, described by many as the race to the bottom. And what that means is U.S. companies have gone overseas looking for the cheapest labor they could find and the lowest environmental standards that they can get away with. Farmers and workers in the developing world have been on the bad end of that logic. In globalization, the interests of farmers and companies are kind of at odds. So companies up here make more money when they pay farmers less. Well, fair trade breaks that contradiction, aligns the interests of farmers and industry, so that actually companies here do quite well by paying farmers more. And in fact, fair trade is growing so fast, and so many consumers have stepped up and are buying the product. What we hear back from the companies we work with is fair trade is hot. Fair trade is the fastest growing segment of the coffee industry today. So they're coming out of it doing quite well. We want companies to feel like it's in their own interest to do fair trade, as well as in the interest of the farmer.
I'm Stephanie Steiner. I'm the grocery buyer merchandiser for PCC Natural Markets in Seattle, Washington. I have the responsibility of determining which dry grocery, dairy, frozen, and household products we carry. We're offering an incredibly high quality product, but we've thought about everything else that comes with it. So I'm not just telling you it's incredibly high quality and sacrificing a farmer or his family. This is a way for me and a way for the consumer to be sure that their dollars are supporting a system that's been checked and verified. Fair trade for me, fair trade coffee, was
was our ability to physically manifest doing the right thing. It was really doing the right thing, not talking about the right thing or feeling like we were doing the right thing. It was really doing the right thing, and it was easy. I was able to create an entirely fair trade, shade-grown, organic coffee set by simply starting conversations with people and saying, this is where I'm going and I'd really like you to be part of it. And everyone was able to source fair trade coffee for me. It wasn't a challenge. So we have the ability to do the right thing for so many people, and we have not dissatisfied anybody in the process. We've done something tremendous simply by choosing to do it. So every consumer has the exact same power when they make that choice for each individual purchase. They just have to choose to relentlessly pursue the possibility. That's it.
We're the only certifier here in the United States, so we are tasked with auditing and certifying the supply chain and providing credibility around this claim that farmers received a better price through fair trade.
Transfair does several things. One, it audits us, so we have to not only report what we purchased in terms of green coffee, but what we sold in terms of finished goods.
That allows us to essentially track the flow of goods through the international supply chain and create what in the certification business is called traceability. So being able to say the beans in this coffee bag can be traced all the way back to Juan Perez in Costa Rica. We know that he is the grower. We know that he received a fair price.
We are the University of Washington Fair Trade Coffee Coalition, and we're a group of students who are really concerned with fair trade issues. We have a cafe on campus called Parnassus, and they approached us a few months ago and said they were interested in making the switch over to fair trade certified coffee. So we talked with them, we connected them with some coffee roasters, and they made that switch.
Since making the switch to fair trade coffee, we've seen an increase of sales, in part due to customers who were not interested in the cafe before, so I think it's opened up our markets. But also our existing customers who are still consuming, but consuming with a better conscience.
Basically, a simple purchase of a cup of coffee really contributes something to the global system, and it says something about what you believe in.
I just think it's a really effective way of change, of creating change, and people respond to that. They want to put their money into places that are positive. Hi, I'm Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam, and you're watching Fair Trade, the story on EQTV.
Here's a positive model for change. Here's fair trade. This changes the world, and it's going to help your business too. So do this, and we'll reward you by giving you our business. We, the consumers, are going to reward you by buying your coffee, buying your bananas, buying your chocolate, and making this thing really work for you.
In addition to the music, which is kind of interesting, 3 things quickly, and we finish today's class. And then next class we start with the competition and debate, okay? The concept that they move, race to the bottom, is something that we have to be very careful about, okay? Because the concept of race to the bottom means that I really want to take advantage of you. And so what I do is I put my business in your country so I can exploit you. So the key question to each and every one of us is, if I'm working in a company, and that company is supposed to make profits because it has shareholders, people who trusted the company, made investment in the company, bought shares of the company, whom am I working for? Okay? So the first question that you will have to ask yourselves is, yes, my first responsibility is going to be with the shareholders of the company, the people who really put the money so that we can have the company. That's very important not to keep out of your mind. It has to be there. The second thing is, okay, that means that as a company, I may wish to go to places where I can make the kind of investment that will give me more profits, or I should distribute my chain of production in ways that will allow me to reduce my costs so I can be more competitive in the market. That is fair. Don't make a mistake. That is fair. That's really what I'm supposed to be doing. Then the second question is, can I exploit people on the other side? Okay, Adam Smith made it very clear. You have to work with the worst instincts of people, but you have to create the institutional environment that will bring those worst things into the right things. Adam Smith never said that we were all angels, okay? What he said is, people are going to be working out of self-interest. They want to be the best for themselves. That's what you do. I mean, you do things because you want to be better off. Now, there is a lot of discussion whether that means that if I do this, I'm going to feel better than that. Well, but basically what Adam Smith is saying, every single person is going to be looking for his or her own benefit first. So the question is, how can I create an environment that will make those selfish purposes transform into a positive net welfare gain for society as a whole? And the answer of Adam Smith and all the people who believe in liberal trade, liberals in terms of the overall policies, is if you have the right environment, if you have the right framework, then people will behave correctly, trying to get their own benefit. But don't stifle that. If you stop people from trying to make their own benefit, you are going to create worse situations. Okay? If you really think that by telling people what to do, that's going to be better, it won't work. So the best environment is the market. And the lesson of this video is, I can create an institutional framework that will make everybody better off without having to come and tell people what to consume, how to consume, what to produce, how to hire people. Look at the whole video. There is no place where they say that there should be no trade. There is no place where they say that there should be some kind of tariff, quota, thing of that sort. There is no place where they say that you should be paying exactly this amount of money to who produces or sale price. All they are saying is we can create the conditions and the environment so that what I consider fair trade, better prices for producers, better care of the environment, works. So what they are doing is they are trying to create conscience in each and every one of us. And by creating that conscience, we will be changing the parameters of the institutional framework upon which we all operate. No one is telling a consumer you cannot go and drink a non-fair trade coffee. All they are saying is, there is people there who may be concerned if you tell them that this is important, if you explain to them why. And then let them make their choice. Don't force them to make the choice. Let them make their choice. And that creates the right environment. Free market, free trade. Fair market, fair trade. Okay? So see you next class. By the way, next class we're going to have a guest, Mr. Paul Mayo. He's going to be talking with us about his experiences as he was the head of the World Bank in the trade department.
What is his name?
Paul Mayo. So he says that his last name is very difficult in Mexico.
Oh, Mayo.
M-A-O, Mayo.
Is he now the secretary of...
No, he has retired from the World Bank, but his last job was as director of the department of the bank that did all the negotiations with WTO. Okay.